Civil protection exercises may be defined as simulations of emergency situations, which can be utilized as a means of testing the response capacity of the various stakeholders involved in civil protection and their existing preparedness plans. Allowing said stakeholders to present their actions and responsibilities. Testing the level of communication between involved stakeholders and their respective channels. Testing the decision-making processes and procedures regarding specific issues that may become relevant as a real disaster situation arises. Through civil protection exercises, the level of preparedness of involved bodies can be verified as well as the accuracy and the effectiveness of their response planning. In interagency exercises, the common understanding between different stakeholders is tested as well as the responsibilities of each stakeholder and the actions they should undertake in case of an emergency. Civil protection exercises can therefore reveal several gaps of a disaster management system and can highlight potential problems that could or would be encountered during the stage of response to an actual disaster. Taking for example the cycle of managing flood risks, civil protection exercises are positioned just between the preparedness and the response stages. Their aim is to simulate an event, in order to enhance response capacity by testing existing capacities in terms of preparedness. Disasters, whether man-made or resulting from natural hazards, can have serious effects on communities and the areas they live in. It is therefore essential to ensure that civil protection systems are at all times ready to respond to crises in the most efficient manner, saving as many lives as possible and limiting damage to the environment and property. Characteristically, the European Commission's Civil Protection and Humanitarian Aid Operations Department funds a number of civil protection exercises every year. Typically each civil protection exercise revolves around the following stages. Pre-exercise, this stage can be further decomposed to the stages of exercise planning, material development, and setup. Exercise conduct, this stages includes activities such as welcoming and opening, briefing, controlling the exercise, capturing the outcomes, and ending the exercise. Post-exercise, this stage includes activities such as debriefing the exercise and the drafting of the exercise's report. The evaluation of an exercise starts within the exercise conduct stages and terminates at the post-exercise stage. There are various forms of civil protection exercises. According to the World Health Organization, these forms are the following: tabletop exercises, drills, functional exercises, full-scale or in-field exercises. Tabletop exercises constitute facilitated discussions generally in an informal, low-stress environment. They are designed to elicit constructive discussion between participants, identify and resolve problems, refine existing operational plans. It is the only type of simulation exercise that does not require an existing response plan in place. The following recommendations apply to the case of tabletop exercises. Maintain a stress-free environment. Present key personnel or agencies with clearly defined roles. Simulate an appropriate event. Thoroughly discuss the various steps of the implementation of an emergency action plan. Maintain a clear focus on training and familiarization with roles, procedures, and responsibilities. Drills constitute coordinated and supervised exercise activities, normally used to test or train a single specific operation or function in a repeated fashion. A drill aims to practice and perfect one small part of a response plan, and should be as realistic as possible, employing any equipment or apparatus necessary for that part. The following recommendations apply to the case of drills. Involve an actual exercise. Consider including actual staff. Test only one aspect of an emergency action plan. Functional exercises constitute fully simulated interactive exercises that test the capability of an organization to respond to a simulated event. Such exercises test multiple functions of the organization's operational plan. They can be viewed as a coordinated response to a situation in a time of pressure. A functional exercise focuses on the coordination, integration, and interaction of an organization's policies, procedures, roles and responsibilities before, during, or after the simulated event. The following recommendations apply to the case of functional exercises. Simulate an emergency in the most realistic manner possible, short of moving real people and equipment to an actual site. Present key personnel or agencies with roles. Provide a real-time stress-induced environment. Ask participants to practice their response and roles. Test communications and coordination. Simulate a field activity. Full-scale or field exercises constitute exercises that simulate a real event as closely as possible, and they are designed to evaluate the operational capability of an emergency management system in a highly stressful environment, simulating actual response conditions. They include the mobilization and movement of emergency personnel, equipment, and resources. Ideally, they should test and evaluate most functions of the emergency management plan or operational plan. They differ from the functional exercises because they involve multiple agencies and participants physically deployed in a field location. The following recommendations apply to the case of full-scale or field exercises. Evaluate operational capabilities of all involved agencies. Include mobilization of personnel and resources. Place special emphasis to the safety of the deployed personnel. The selection of the appropriate type of exercise is not a trivial task. Specifically, it should take into account various factors such as whether or not it is of interest to test a specific skill or task, whether or not it is of interest to test an emergency plan or policy, whether or not it is of interest to test an organization's capability or structure, whether or not it is of interest to test a specific component or function, whether or not it is desirable to deploy equipment. In order to draft an appropriate scenario for any type of civil protection exercise, the following should be kept in mind. Civil protection exercises allow learning from past experiences regardless of whether those experiences resulted on positive or negative outcomes. The learning process works better when experiences from others are combined with own experiences. Therefore, recreating conditions of past events, even if not precisely or accurately, may prove a more valuable tool in facilitating learning, when compared to more traditional approaches, such as lectures or training manuals. On the other hand, taking into account that experience has its limits, it is of particular importance to explore scenarios that go beyond past events as a means of facilitating the reveal of additional existing weaknesses that may otherwise been left unexplored. Such an approach promotes a proactive way of thinking, since solely relying on past experiences may only prepare oneself for currently known threats and not as easily for wider future possibilities. Civil protection exercises typically involve the following roles. Players. This role refers to the personnel of the involved civil protection authorities that take part actively in the emergency operations based on the scenario to be simulated. Players should be capable of making decisions in real time following a realistic approach, equivalent to a real-world case. It is assumed that players are aware of the structure of the civil protection mechanism, the associated processes and procedures, as well as the available human and material resources. Controllers. This role refers to parties, which are responsible to feed players with all the required messages and information and to coordinate or guide the progress of the exercise. Controllers are responsible in ensuring that the goals of the exercise will be fulfilled, the players will be trained to an adequate degree, and the exercise will progress according to adopted scenario. Moreover, controllers are responsible for ensuring that all rules associated to the health and safety of the participants will be met. Finally, in the case of full-scale or field exercises, an exercise director should be determined, who will be supported by the parties assigned with the role of controllers. Civil protection exercises typically involve the following roles. Evaluators. This role refers to parties, which have been tasked with tracking/monitoring the action performed by all participants to address the situation resulting from the adopted scenario, recording of their observations, and collection any other relevant information. Evaluators should be the most experienced members of the participating parties and should be at least 10 in case of a full-scale or field exercise. Observers. This role refers to parties or, more precisely, members of said parties, which just observe the progression of the exercise without having other responsibilities. They are invited by the organizing committee and they may belong to the following categories: personnel of the trained civil protection authorities, personnel of authorities not taking part in the exercise, representatives of the Management Committee of Civil Protection or other national authorities, and representatives from foreign authorities. Civil protection exercises typically involve the following roles. Actors. This role refers to persons tasked with pretending to be the victims of a potential disastrous event or even representatives from the media. Their participation is important, taking into account that it raises the level of the exercise's realism. Supporting personnel. This role refers to persons that belong to the personnel of involved parties/authorities and are tasked with providing supporting services as well as ensuring the proper function of involved information and decision support systems. The scenario of the J-Cross civil protection exercise involves a high-magnitude earthquake, which will result in the failure of the dam of Pelagonia and a subsequent flood. The exercise, being a joint one, involves participants from both Greece and North Macedonia. In detail, it is assumed that the city of Florina is not affected by the flood caused by the dam failure. However, it is assumed that the following villages are seriously affected: Aklada, Idea, Lofwa, Melody, Neokoriki, Skopus. The flood resulting from the dam failure is assumed to propagate from the villages or facilities located closer to the dam. The population of the affected villages and the distance from the dam of Pelagonia is presented in the table below. In addition, the following facilities are assumed to be affected: the 2 lignite mines located in the vicinity of Aklada village, the power station of Melodis, individual units of the industrial zone of Florina located between the villages Neokoriki and Armanakori. It should be noted that the industrial area of Florina includes at least 16 enterprises, based on the indexed ones in a commercial business registry, while its centroid is located 15 km away from the dam of Pelagonia and 9.5 km away from the city of Florina. The power station of Melodis includes a power generation unit, 330 MW, while consumes lignite resources extracted at the mines located in vicinity of Aklada village. The power station of Melodis is located 11.5 km away from the dam of Pelagonia and 15 km away from the city of Florina. The J-Cross civil protection exercise involves 2 stages. The first one deals with the operations required to evacuate both the affected villages and the affected facilities. It is assumed that the evacuees located in the affected villages are citizens, while the evacuees located in lignite mines of Aklada, the power station of Melodis, and the industrial area of Florina are employees. The evacuation operations should be initiated taking into consideration the proximity of each point of interest from the dam of Pelagonia as well as the existence or not casualties. The shelters into which the evacuees will be transported depends heavily on the season that such an event will take place, taking into consideration that the climate profile of the city of Florina. The J-Cross civil protection exercise involves 2 stages. The second stage revolves around operations necessary for mitigating the propagation of flood as well as the power outage. To this end, civil protection powers should move towards the affected villages, in order to ensure that their drainage facilities are functional, and towards the power station of Melodis, in order to assist in draining operations as means of shortening the period required for the power station to recover to a business-as-usual status. A critical parameter that shall be taken into account is the prioritization of the facilities that should be supplied with electric power in case of power outage, e.g. hospitals.